and welcome. Ew, hold on one second. Trying to mute. I hear echo. Is that on one of you all? If you can mute, because I can hear the feedback. Okay, so welcome to this edition of Houston TSTA. My name is Michelle Williams. You all know me as the union president for the Houston Education Association. And tonight I brought some friends with me. Let me find my little screen. And here we are. We have Norma from our El Paso affiliate. And I know a lot of you all y'all probably think I'm this Lone Ranger out here, but I am not. There are other of us from El Paso, and I have Lakeisha from Deer Park Association. So what I'm going to do is let them start off by introducing themselves and their role within our structure, which is the Texas Education Association. So, Norma, if you'll go first.
Hello, everyone. I'm Norma De La Rosa, and I am the president of the El Paso Teachers Association. Our school district is El Paso Independent School District, and we are right now at close to 1,000 members in our local. And so the oldest teacher union in the El Paso Independent School District. And so we are dealing with our own issues as well. So Michelle is not the only one out there having to deal with issues and problems and school board members and so forth. So all of us who are here on this call are pretty much doing the same work within our locals, doing what we do to represent our members and their best interests, and not just their interests, but the interest of those that we are there for, and that's for our students.
Lakeisha.
Good evening. My name is Lakeisha Patterson. There's some echo. I'm a third grade ELA teacher, and I am also the president of Deer Park Education Association. Greetings to everyone here. And just as Norma so eloquently said, we are advocates for our members, our students, our community. We're all in this coalition together working to ensure that we have the best public schools for our students. So happy to be here.
All right, Kevin. Kevin is Beaumont.
Good evening. How's everybody doing? Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening. I'm Kevin Jackson, President, Beaumont Teachers Association.
You want to add something about your local, where you all represent? Because not everybody knows
Oh,
where Beaumont is.
well, well, our local is basically represented in Beaumont, Texas. Surrounding cities are Port Arthur, Port Neches, Nederland, Lumberton, but all of those associations, except for Port Arthur, are rather small. But we have teachers that in Beaumont that come from those different towns, as well as inside of the city limits of Beaumont. And basically, what we do is, of course, we advocate for educators. We do whatever we can. We just recently got a VAER pass, which allowed us to get 3% added to a 2% raise. Whatever it takes for us to do to help teachers out, which we're trying to do that, but we're also trying to do it in a way such as we're bringing in parents, and we're trying to also help students as much as we can as well, because if it's not a unified effort, it won't make it.
Very good. So tonight's live stream is basically focused on what is a teachers union and what do we do to advocate for members. I'm going to start off with our structure because I get this all the time. Are you a AFT? No, we are not AFT. We are part of the NEA, National Education Association family. And AFT are the Federation family. We are not the same union. We are, first of all, what sets us apart from AFT is that we actually represent educators and education professionals. AFT represents nurses, railroad employees, those people in addition to educators. We do not represent those people. Here's another question. People ask me, do we represent principals? Our locals do not. However, our national does. And I know some people say, well, NEA, they represent principals. Well, principals are people too. So, but our local, we realize that that is a conflict of interest on my part, because what is also different from AFT, we're actual employees of said districts. So, HFT, their president is a retired teacher or retired somebody or whomever. That is not our structure. We're actually employees of the district. Any of you all would like to add to that to clear up the confusion about who we are?
To be part of our local. And I will tell you that AFT always throws that out when they are out recruiting. Telling them that we do allow administrators into our local. The way we explain that is that when it comes to an issue on a campus, with a member, a teacher who is a member, and a principal who is a member. We explain to them that our first priority is going to be that teacher, or it's going to be that hourly employee, and it's not going to be the principal who may happen to be our member, simply because the principal in their role as an administrator will have the support and the backing of central office in their role as an administrator. When it comes to representing our teachers or our hourly people, they have no one to represent them except us. And so we take them first. But then I also turn it around and say that as administrators also have a boss, what I call a boss. And I said, and many times, especially in our district and the history in our district, where we've had central office administrators give directives to our campus principals or campus assistant principals that they know full well are illegal, is against the law. And so I turn it around and then say, when they're given that kind of directive, um, they should not have to be faced with making a decision to put their certification in jeopardy because they're being given a directive by their superior to do something that is wrong. And I said, and why should they not have representation in that instance? And when we put it in that light, then our members, our teacher members, and our hourly members fully understand, because then their response to me is, well, yeah, they do need to have somebody to represent them, because at that point in time, central office is not representing them, they're on their own. And so we make that very clear. And also, as part of our message, which is very different from AFT's because of their affiliation with the AFL CIO, the AFL CIO's message is it's us versus them, it's labor versus management. And my explanation to them as to why we take administrators is that administrators started a lot of times where we are now as teachers or as hourly people. And yes, and they've worked their way up into that position as an administrator. But our position should not be one of us versus them. Our position should be one of working together to collaborate, to finding the best solution to what we need to do to provide the best education for our students. Now, do I always agree with our administrators who also happen to be members? No, I don't. But I will tell you that because of that relationship that I have with some of our administrators who are members of our local, is that many times they'll call me and they'll ask me, Norma, this is what I want to do, or this is what I'm being told to do. How do you think that will go over with our teachers? And I have an opportunity to sit down and have that conversation with it and say, no, that's not a good idea because here's where it may violate the law or the letter of the law or the spirit of the law. And so, in that case, that gives me an opportunity to prevent any issues from coming forward between some of our members on that campus and the administrator. So there's pros and cons to having administrators, but it's all going to depend on how the local deals with it and how the local uses our administrators as advocates for themselves and for their teachers on their campus and their students. And when I tell them that as NEA, we have superintendents across the country who belong to our organization, and we need to ask the question why. And the reason is because of our principles and because of our advocacy. They understand that they've been a member of the organization for so long. They said that even as an administrator, they're not going to drop their membership in an organization that is going to advocate for the most important reason why we are in this profession, and that is for our students.
Anybody else want to add to that?
Yeah, I'll add to it. First of all, Beaumont does not have AFT down here. We have ATPE. So AFT is kind of like foreign language in this area here for us. I do understand who it is and what it is, but a lot of people don't know that. But we do have another organization called ATP out here, very similar to BTA. However, one of the things that we like to say with BTA, we have 3-in-1. We have Beaumont Teachers Association, Texas State Teachers Association, and EDA. ATP, from what I'm understanding, has their one representation along with the help from up above. One of the things that we do is we do encourage administrators to be a part of it because sometimes administrators will have to. There are extenuating circumstances that will go beyond the bosses up above uh, our administrators, so they will have to take their grievances a little bit further, and sometimes they really need that legal advice that TSTA will offer. Also, again, to piggyback what Ms. Norma said, one of the things that we do is we make sure that the building that bridge again, because most of our administrators were teachers, and because they were teachers, they because they were teachers, it's kind of like a building block and a building block of representative. So what we do is we make sure that the someone can possibly go in and build that bridge and recognize, as Ms. Norma said, you can sometimes that administrator, you may have that ability to go in and just talk with that administrator one-on-one, and kind of speak to them and speak to the situation. Sometimes administrators do remember where they're from, and sometimes they don't. Sometimes you just have to kind of work it out and make it make sense to them. Sometimes everyone has a position to play, but the one thing that we've realized here in Beaumont is that when we're building and we are rebuilding some things and changing some things up, is that we all have a position to play and everybody has to work together, because the main goal and the main thing that we're here to do is serve our school districts that we work in and those children that are being served in it. And as long as we're not getting together and as long as we're not working as a unified group to try and better our relationships with one another, attitude reflects leadership, and that will continue to have our student bodies dwindle in numbers to a point to where we're allowing things like charter schools and these other schools to just step in and take over so easily without any type of resistance. So that's one of the things that we generally try and work on around here is building relationships, again, community, administrative wise, just to try and make it work, because we realize that children are our business.
All right, very good. So, moving on to the next question. So, it's about the Texas State Teachers Association. And a lot of people, they know of TSTA, but they don't know about TSTA. So, TSTA has a long history. Can either one of you all share a part of TSTA's history with the 100 people that we have on this live stream, because I think Norma knows the most.
Well, having been a member of TSTA and NEA for over 40 years, I've learned a lot in my role and my different leadership roles that I've had, throughout my career. One of the things that that we point out to, especially when we do our recruiting, to show them exactly what TSTA has done. So a lot of things that educators today can enjoy is because of the advocacy of TSTA. So the reason that you all have a 30-minute duty-free lunch is because TSTA advocated and fought for that in the legislature to get that to you. The reason you have a 45-minute conference period is because TSTA advocated and fought for you and the legislature to give you that 45-minute conference period every day, or those 450 minutes every 2 weeks. We have, when we talk about a lot of what we have happening in our classroom, working with our state school board members, being able to get the kind of curriculum into our schools that are that is inclusive of all of our students and that is inclusive of what has really happened within the state, is all because of the advocacy of TSTA. Not just our state officers, but all of our members and our local members, our local officers and leaders that we have had, that have had that kind of relationship and communication with our legislators here in Texas. I'm trying to think right now, because we made up a whole list that we shared with our prospective members when we went and did our recruiting, about all of the gains that we had through NEA and through TSTA. So I would say that a lot of what you are able to enjoy today in the classroom, the freedoms that you have right now in the classroom, to be the teacher that you are, to be able to implement a lot of what you do in the classroom today, is because of the advocacy of TSTA fighting for our teachers to be able to do our jobs in the classroom with our students. So TSTA has long always been an advocate and has always been a fighter during the legislative sessions here in Texas to get what our teachers need. But one of the things that always sticks out, very, very strongly with me is that lunch period, because before that, teachers, you were not guaranteed a lunch period to do that. You were not guaranteed a conference period to do the work that you need to do during a conference period. And so it's very easy to go on to the TSTA website and look at that, or I can send that to Michelle, what we put together, because we put it together as a big poster for us to have during our school visits, and we also put it in paper form to pass out when we do our school visits on our campuses. And when people sit and read that and look at that, it's amazing what they assumed was something given to them by the school district, but it was not given to them by the school district. It was mandated by the legislature because of TSTA's work.
All right. Anybody else want to add to that?
I just wanted to piggyback on what Norma said, especially about the duty-free lunch and the conference period. I think as someone who is not as well versed in education as others, being a new or a fairly new educator, it's empowering and reassuring to know that you're part of a union who really truly values educators and advocates for educators. And that's what you get with TSTA. And I think it's important that when we have those conversations with potential and current members, we remind them of the work that the association does for all of its members, and talk about the pipeline that we can create from a local to the state to the national, right? And you get that as being a member of whatever local you're a part of, TSTA and NEA. So advocacy, talking about the foundation, the building blocks that have been set by predecessors before us, but that we reap the benefits of, is incredibly important as well.
All right, very good. Next one, because I think Norma she told us about some examples of how the union has made a difference for educators, because that planning period that people, I know they scream about it in HISD and probably across the state when it's not given to them or they feel like it's being taken away from them. So here's a good question. Many people have misconceptions about unions. What are some of those misconceptions and how would you address them? I'm going to start with this one. So for me, the misconception is that that there are no unions in Texas. So that's the misconception that I hear all the time, because most people that with this shift and people coming from other states, they were like, well, we have collective bargaining, we have the we can strike. Those are small portions. Those are tools for unions to fight. No, we do not have that. But when I tell people, I said, what is the definition of the word union? We are a union. Being a collective bargaining union or being able to strike, it does not make you a union. Under our state's constitution and our laws, we have the right to associate. That says that there are unions in Texas. Anybody else want to add on to that?
I wanted to chime in. You hear that a lot when people compare and say, "Oh, we're not a union per se. We're an association." And then I start the conversation. Well, what do you look for from a union? Well, someone to help me and support me and educate me and guide me. Oh, well, we do that and more. What else? Well, if we want to do, if we want better raises, then we should strike. Well, we can't strike per se, but we can negotiate. We can attend school board meetings. We can collaborate as a collective and share, reasons why we deserve set raise. We can show them where the money is, right? Like, organizing doesn't necessarily mean you have to be able to strike or collective bargain. You can still organize for change, organize for power, organize to get the needs of the collective met. But the key word again is organizing, which we do. And I would say some of us do it very well, right? And that's another key component of what makes TSTA, NEA very different from, those others, which I will not name.
Anybody else?
Let me answer this last question because I will have to get off to get to my family affair. But one misconception that we have, and a lot of this comes not just from within our profession, but within our community, our major, for a lot of teachers who join a union, it's for the protection. And so a misconception that a lot of people have is that we protect bad teachers. The misconception is that I'm not protecting a bad teacher. What I am protecting is their due process rights. Because what people need to understand in the community and even within our own profession, because a lot of teachers don't understand this until something happens to them, that their due process rights may be affected. Is that when a teacher is accused of anything, of any allegation, what education employees here in Texas especially need to understand is that they are guilty until proven guilty. And that is very much counter to what our Constitution of the United States says. But in order for me to, to fight whatever that allegation may be, whether after a thorough, and what I would hope, which does not happen most of the time, a fair and unbiased investigation, is I need to make sure that that teacher's due process rights are protected, that, that they've had an opportunity to give their side of the story. that they've every possible part of that investigation has taken place. If CPS comes back and says, there is no basis to the allegation that a student made against a teacher, I have to fight the district to make sure that they take that CPS report into account, because if I don't, then that teacher has been unfairly judged as being guilty when, in for all intents and purposes, they may not be guilty. Now, does that mean that we don't have, employees that do things that they should not do? We know full well that they do. But I'm not supporting them in that aspect of the process. I'm just making sure that their due process rights are followed, because it is important that they know that they have due process rights as an education employee. Um, it's not any different than if, one of our education employees is arrested out in the public for something that they did outside of a school. They're guaranteed due process rights. And we need to make sure, and that's what we do as a union, is to ensure that those due process rights are followed. It is in the law, it is in the education code that there is a due process rights for our employees. And so that's always a misconception that I have to correct, that I'm not protecting a bad teacher, I'm not protecting a good teacher, I'm protecting their due process rights to make sure that whatever the process is done according to the law and according to the code.
Very
So,
good point. Thank you for participating.
well, thank you, and I'm sorry I have to leave, but this one came up at the last minute, and so another time I will make sure that I'm here for the whole time. But if anybody has any questions, Michelle knows how to get in touch with me. So you all have a good start to the new year.
Thank you, Norma.
Bye.
All righty, moving on. Let's see.
Michelle, you're muted.
Made a good point. She made a point where it's just like the criminal justice system. They have the right to a defense. And we know that there are not so nice teachers or teachers that do not do what they're supposed to do. But that does not give the school district the right to trample on their rights. That's not a green light. Just because you have a person who has done some things, but you cannot trample on their rights. If we allow that, then what are we here for? So, and HISD's current state, they would like to say that, oh, this teacher did that. Well, that the board of managers, they have us in a $500 million budget deficit. We wish we could get rid of them, plus everybody else along with them, because they have the largest budget deficit in the history of the school district. Before the school district was even an urban school district. Like, we have the worst budget deficit. So that's a two-way street. And unfortunately, that's just the hand that we're dealt. But she made a good point. We protect rights. We make sure that if a teacher is going to be terminated, you all saw my case. HISD, well, we're going to say the appointed superintendent he sent all his people after me. But because TSTA got me a very good attorney, and that I made sure that I was operating within policy. And when we appealed and I got my hearing and I got the favorable recommendation, that's an example of what the union does. Now we can argue this point, and I have some people, because teachers, they like to keep it cute. Oh, well, I know a person that, you know what, we all know somebody. But what I do is I try to ensure that and you all know this, you can message me on Messenger, you can text me, and I am going to get back with you to make sure that you get somebody and some help with the issues that you all are facing. I'm an employee. I have represented employees. I have taken principals on and won. Even within this whole hostile environment that we're working in called the new HISD, we have done that. And it's not about whether you're right or wrong, because I met teachers that were in the wrong? Absolutely. But it does not make it right for the principal to say, well, they did this, so I'm going to do this. That's not how it works. Kevin, you want to add, or Lakeisha?
Well, yeah, I agree. First thing I want to say is that in order for whatever you want to call us, an association or a union, the first thing you have to understand is this: in order for you to get the help, you have to be a member.
Facts.
Um, let me be real with you, because we've had situations here in Beaumont where people have come to us and asked us, and the only thing I could do was tell them what they could possibly do because they weren't a part of anything, or they were a part of the other guys and they felt like the other guys weren't, giving them the assistance they need. So it's always good to be a part of something. Being a part of something is better than being a part of nothing at all. And right now, I feel like the best thing going in Beaumont, Texas is BTA, period, hands down. So along with that, I'm going to say I have been in situations where there have been teachers who were um, not necessarily right, and then I've had many situations where teachers were right. But again, the main thing to do is to establish an understanding, and more importantly, what I tell everyone is to maintain your calm. Do not allow anyone to take you out of your character, because character goes a long way. You have to make sure in situations you stay calm, you stay collected, and you gather your information, and that's where a lot of this comes in at, because the gray area I find a lot of times is people will become upset and they will become outraged. Things will get said, things will get done, and people will take that and pull it out of context, not realizing that that's not even the situation at hand. But they're taking that and they're running with that because that's the tea that they can use to flip the script on you. So again, that's one of the good things about one of the smart things about, I see that we need to understand that, that's one of the things I tell our members all the time: stay calm, take the facts, state the facts, and now let's go in and let's go take care of business. Because when you're not doing those things and you get caught out of your character, those are the main things that the upper echelon will point out. This person did this person did that. And I've been in rooms where I've said, well, look, that's fine. I hear what you're saying, but that's not what we're talking about. This is the subject matter, and
Right.
let's stick to the subject matter. So again, that's just a big part of it. Um, and again, that comes back to making sure that we all stay in our places. If I'm an adult, act like an adult. Don't act like one of our students.
Yeah.
And that is a huge thing for me. Um, Try your best to maintain your professionalism at all times, because in this situation a lot of times we're trying to, there are a lot of people in our associations, our unions, whatever again you want to call it. We represent a multitude of people, races, different environments and everything else. So we have to be flexible in how we approach everything and understand that. And again, that's where cultural sensitivity will also come in. And we have to know who we're dealing with as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, because even there was a situation, because we have different schools. Like we have Mandarin immersion and we have another one. But I had a situation where it was dealing with some cultural issues. And I had to tell the lady, I said, I'm gonna be honest with you, I know nothing about this. So, it was something that came from their country that's unique to the United States because we deal with retaliation, the old average, but this was something totally different. It had to do with religion and infringing on her rights. Like it was a whole situation. That was not something that I'm accustomed to. And I'm gonna say this, with all of the teachers that are being brought in on those H-1B visas, you need to be part of an association, a union, whatever you want to call it, because it's important. When I was at the bus barn, there was one down there. She was on an H-1B visa. She went back to her campus. Now we spent a good 2 months together. So, but she was there. So if I know it's a different ball game with you all, and you may feel like, oh, I don't need that, you absolutely do need it. So if you're on a H-1B visa, and we know that they do a lot of things to you all that are on visas. We know that one of the schools that used to have a contract with HISD was one of them that frequently abused that program and the people that were in that program. So you need to be a part, and I dropped the link to our membership. You can join if you're in Deer Park, if you know some people in Deer Park, because we have almost 200 people on this live stream. If you know someone in Beaumont, I know a teacher specifically, I'm about to tag her in this. She needs to join Beaumont because she moved from Houston down there. She's at one of the high schools. If you know people that are in, tag them, share this live stream with them, and give them the membership link. You can join Houston, Deer Park, if you're in El Paso. If you know somebody, tag them. Tell them to become a member of the local organization, which will put them in our family of affiliates, which is the Texas State Teachers Association and the National Education Association. So, challenges facing Texas. Good old Texas. So, first question, what are some of the most urgent challenges teachers in Texas are facing right now?
Lack of funding. We
No
have a
payments.
governor sitting on $33 billion in surplus and, like a toddler, refuses to release the money to school districts who are in dire need. Let's start there. Lack of funding. Let's move on to overworked teachers. Let's then jump to teachers who are not certified. Let's then jump into classroom sizes. Let's talk about educator mental health. Let's talk about the condition of certain school buildings. I mean, what are we not facing? Gun violence. There's a plethora of issues that are facing our Texas schools. And instead of our governor doing the right thing and focusing on educational funding, school safety, he chooses to put all of his coins into a pot called vouchers. So, that's where we are. In 2025, we're still dealing with nonsense.
Absolutely. And I think the parents, and one of the things that I've been focusing on is bringing the community on board with unions. And this is why this is so important, because when we go to the legislature, that we need the voters. So partnering with the community and helping them to navigate the bureaucracy as that we call public education is important, because those same voters, those same people that you have helped will remember at the ballot box. And if you're asking, because we are looking at collective bargaining, So much so that we have outside organizations that are targeting our members in Houston and sending push cards saying to drop your union membership. Like it has to, and the bill, Lauren, she is a newly elected state rep. She pre-filed a collective bargaining bill, which I do believe we have enough parent community support to push it through, but we have to get legislators who are on board with that. We have to. So that's where that community push comes from. And I think since we have, like you said, the governor who's throwing tantrums and is withholding funding, parents now actually see what the issues are because your beloved schools like Louisville ISD, bless their hearts, they closed 5 schools. And then you have some of these ignorant people on these platforms saying you can't operate off of $1 billion. No, sir. When 60% of that billion goes to salaries and your insurance. No, you cannot. Give us a better insurance plan. As a matter of fact, give us free insurance because don't nobody want to teach these children. They're leaving in droves. So if you treat your teachers better and you pay, you would understand. And then if you paid attention to the budget, that's another thing. Budgets are a matter of public record. Ask for the budget. You'll see where the money is going, but you're spewing misinformation about unions and schools and how we're mismanaging money, and that's not the case. And how we are the reason why public education is in. We are not those people. Just like I told you, we're employees of the district. So how are we the problem if we're employees? Make it make sense.
I think if the governor truly cared, then he would take the recommendations from the task force, that task force that he created to understand why we had such a high teacher turnover. He would take those recommendations and he would really act on them. Instead, it seems as if he's done everything against what those recommendations are. So you created this task force, you put on this, big show that you care about educators, you care about teachers, you care about our schools, but everything you're doing is against that. So you're actually just a rolling contradiction. It's disgraceful.
It is, absolutely. All right, next question. What role does the union play in helping teachers address these challenges both at a local and state level? So now we're talking about what we do Houston, Deer Park, Beaumont, and at the state level. Anyone want to start first?
So for us at the local level, the local officers are very adamant and we're very much working on visibility, making sure that we attend school board meetings, making sure that we send out surveys, kind of do pulse checks to see how our members are feeling, what situations or issues are going up. We have monthly meetings with our superintendent so that we can address those issues. And then we collaborate with our state leadership as well for tools or resources, especially with this upcoming legislative session. We want to ensure that our members know how to be active, how to engage, because we are beyond the point of just, quote unquote thoughts and prayers. We need to engage and we need to be active. We need to attend these educational hearings. We need to be reaching out to our elected officials. We need to start holding people accountable, because when you talk about the school system, typically the only person who is under this accountability umbrella are educators, right? And that has to change. Like, we have to get out of this narrative of it's the teacher and everything's on our shoulders, when no, we need to be given proper training, proper financial compensation, adequate resources so that we can do the job that we signed the contract for. And to ensure that that happens, we need to start holding people accountable. So I believe it truly begins with visibility, advocacy, and then action.
True. Absolutely.
I think um, I think what we're doing here in Beaumont is a lot like what we're trying to do here in Beaumont is a lot like what Lakeisha and them are doing there. We're trying to increase visibility. We're trying to meet with the administrators as more than we were, and get a dialogue going because it is a disconnect. And but our biggest issue in Beaumont has been for some teachers fear of retaliation. It's hard to get teachers sometimes to, unless they're on their way out or they're retiring, then they say, well, I got my years, I don't care anymore. I don't need you not to care anymore. I need you still to care and approach this in a manner which you want to pay it forward so that the teachers coming behind you will have a firm ground to grow and stand on. So that's my biggest issue now. I have a group of inexperienced teachers, and then we have a group of experienced teachers who are at that point where they could either go somewhere else for another 2 years and then retire, or they could retire right now. And then I have a group of younger teachers who are being challenged to teach these young people, and the young people are challenged to teach. And again, with the pay being what it is, and to give credit to my district, they are trying to increase pay. But again, when you have someone holding that kind of money hostage because they want to, they're being petty, that's difficult. It's really difficult to do. I think that a lot of people need to pay attention to what's going on because this financial crunch isn't just hitting, your low socioeconomically disadvantaged districts. It's hitting those districts out there that are quote unquote were considered financially stable. Because if you want the truth about it, the low socioeconomically districts are still making it because of the low socioeconomic dividends we got from elsewhere.
Right.
And we're able to do certain things still. But those districts that did not qualify are really struggling. But we're all are hurting. And that's the thing that we need to understand, that we need to hold we need to hold everybody accountable. We need to hold the governor accountable, but people don't understand that. What we need to be able to understand and separate federal issues from state issues and local issues. Um, if there's something that you like what Trump is doing, that doesn't mean that issue trickles all the way down to us locally. And that's the thing that we're having. I think the disconnect comes. I just ironically had this conversation with a gentleman today, and he was ironically a Trump supporter. Not a problem for me. That's your business. But something that he likened to what he was trying to explain to me, and I had to bring it to his attention. How does that help you locally? How does that help you locally? And when I explained to him that it did not help him locally, he kind of stepped back and looked at me, and he kind of said thank you, and he walked away. He didn't say yeah, you're right, but he said thank you, and he walked away. That to me said that he didn't necessarily want to agree with me, but I gave him some food for thought. And that's where I think a lot of the disconnect is coming, because people are so dead set on watching things at a federal level, not realizing
Right.
that some of those things that's happening on the federal level has nothing to do with us here locally or statewide. Although it does have a slight impact, we need to go from the opposite way and start locally and then go to state and then go to federal. And that's what we need to do as far as what's going on. But again, a lot of people aren't looking at it that way. And that's why so many districts are beginning to suffer now. And so many people are beginning. I think we're going to see something different in the next gubernatorial election out here in Texas. That I hope at least, but you never know.
Yeah, and you know, that is a good point because I don't think people really understand that under the Constitution of the United States, the schools are a state's right. And I have to remind people all the time. I said the federal government is like the big brother. When you're not, it's like the appeals process. When you have exhausted everything and you go to the Department of Education. And the whole Trump thing, people didn't understand what the Department of Education did, but they understand now. Because when you don't have federal oversight, if you think about integration of schools, that was the government. The federal government came in and made the states integrate the schools. That's the big brother. But when you don't have that and you have a president-elect that is saying that they're going to take that oversight, what do you think is going to happen in the state of Texas? There's no oversight. And then
It's
you're
a huge
turning to
loss of checks and balances.
right, and
Huge.
then you're turning to the courts. The Texas Supreme Court, what are they worth? An election? And then it's gotten so bad that the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, which they have lost all their credibility, had to issue a statement telling federal judges that they still have to uphold the law. Where does that happen at? When you have to remind a person who went to law school that it is their responsibility to uphold law. Like, we are in a different time period. And that's why what we do as a local, building coalition with the community, because it's going to take everyone. The union, our membership dues, and even things that you see that we do politically, we can't take union dues and spend it towards politics. We can't support local and state races. We have to have a pact. So that's one of the things that I'm trying to get together for our local, is to start our own local pact so that we can fund local races and people that we support. When we get HISD back, that is one of the goals, to have a pact to where we can put real educators or people that care about HISD, because we're tired of these people. Only reason people are interested in HISD because the city of Houston, HISD's taxpayer fund HISD. HISD don't get no money from the state. You might say, oh, 270 million is a lot. Not compared to 2.2 billion. That's how much we take in revenue. We don't get any money from the state. The city of Houston and those residents fund HISD. And the only reason that they care about it is because HISD does contracts. Everybody wants the piece of the pie. So we're here to push initiatives where we get quality candidates that actually care about HISD. HISD is an urban school district. We got urban issues. All urban school districts have the same thing. Dade County, New York Public Schools, LA Unified, Chicago, all of us have the same issues, the same ones. So we're no different. That's why when they came in and took over Houston, it's like, what are you talking about? These are the same problems that everybody has, that we're all fighting. But, those are some of the things that our main goal for the Houston local of TSTA is to build coalition and connect with the community. We will be out at the MLK parade. That's one of the things that we're doing, to get out and, like Lakeisha, Norma, and Kevin said, to build awareness of who we are and what we do, and to support communities in which we're in. What we do, I know for me, we bank with Unity Bank, which is a Black bank. We try to do business with minority-owned businesses, women businesses, those type of things before we spend money to a major business. That's one of the initiatives that we do to support the communities in which we serve. So there are some things that I do intentionally to support HISD, being visible, being open. Y'all know about my case. That's one of the ways in which we build power, is going up against the school districts when they're in the wrong. And like Kevin said, he said they're scared of retaliation. And I have to tell our members, everybody retaliates. It is a form of human preservation. You're trying to preserve your ego, and all of that. Retaliation is a part of it. But when you're in the right, like Kevin said, you're not popping off. It is many times when I wanted to, those people sat in that hearing and told a oodle of lies. I ain't never seen nobody lie so much in my entire life. They lied from the beginning. Said I was at the school at 6:30 live streaming. So it was just a lot of lies there, but you have to remain calm as a person that's a part of a union. It is the hardest thing. It's hard to wait. And I tell members that all the time when they're on administrative leave. I have the same experience. I was down at the bus barn filing papers. So it's when you're it takes time. But those are some of the things, but we have to strengthen that muscle that we have and be able to fight. That's what I was telling some of the parents. I'm not going to always be in Houston. We need to exercise that fight muscle and be able to persevere. This is not a sprint. This is a marathon. And that's why you need to be a part of a union that has a history. NEA is a very good national organization to be a part of. There is no perfect organization. You're not going to agree with all of its principles. You're not. But it has a platform. The reason why I'm on here, because it allows us to have a platform to inform you. And you can't do it by yourself. Being Michelle Williams doesn't hold any weight. But Michelle Williams, the president of Houston Education Association, which gives me a platform to advocate and move things and try to affect change within education. So the last question as we wrap up is, how does the union engage with policymakers to ensure that teachers' voices are heard in education reform? So what do we do?
I think for us, what we do is we open our doors to the politicians, even those who are or vying for election. We give them an opportunity to come in and introduce themselves and on a whole critical conversations with them to see where they're at, and we make sure that they feel comfortable. Because sometimes when you get folks comfortable, they tend to say the things you need to hear. And that's not like a trap or anything, but it's just we want to know who we're electing. We want to know who we're talking to. We want to know what is their platform. Every politician went to school and had a teacher. Okay, and I'm sure there's one or two teachers in that realm of their educational career they liked. So again, that's great. But I want to know, where's your mindset now? What are you looking at? How do you view public education? We actually had one guy come in and he was talking to us, and in the middle of his conversation, his children were being educated at a private school. Well, I mean, nothing personal, but you're running for office in the city and yet your children go to a private school. Well, there's nothing wrong with that. If you have the money to do that, that's your choice. However, when asked what was your reason for not sending them to a public school, he couldn't give me a good reason. It could have been a multitude of reasons he gave me. Well, my job doesn't allow me to do this, and this private school does this for me. It could have been anything. He didn't give a reason, really. He just said that he just wasn't pleased with the schools that were in the neighborhood he was in. Keep it in mind, he was in an upscale neighborhood. So, all right. So you don't like the better schools that we offer here in Beaumont, I guess I'm assuming. But again, these are things that, we do to try and fill out who we're electing and how we go about it. It's a vetting period. It's an opportunity for us to get to know our elected officials. And if we do, to build that bridge, that if we do have a situation or a problem that arises that affects teachers, we can go back to that person and say, hey, what can you do to help us? It's not an IOU, but just maybe to get some understanding and get some direction of what we could do, of how we can go about getting educators in the school some help if need be, or even just have them come in and talk about who they are and what they do. That's another thing. Now that's a favor I say we call that in, because we want these politicians to come in and we want them to talk to our kids, because a lot of times we've had people, politicians as well as local people, come in, and then the kids will go home, and for whatever reason, because kids don't watch television anymore, but this may be a time they're seeing television or watching television, they say, oh, I saw her, I saw him on television. They're able to connect it, and then that just gives some more reality to what's going on, and to make the children start paying attention more to what's happening in their community locally. And those are the type of experiences that we seek to try and create, because the more children connect with their community, the more they're gonna respect their community and their surroundings and their environment, so that they hopefully they can become better citizens.
Yeah. Good.
So I think it's really important to ensure that you're engaging starting at the local level with your school board members, right? Because a lot of times you'll hear colleagues talk about, elections and all the way up to federal concerns. But when we have a conversation regarding a local school board election, they're very uninformed and don't realize the power that the school board has when it comes to your contract, when it comes to your salary, when it comes to your working conditions. So, again, I think it goes back to that piece about education, educating members about the importance of not just local level issues, but as well as state level issues, because I think we have to start there at that micro level before we start thinking bigger and thinking, the Department of Ed and federal government and the incoming president and this and that. Like, let's take care of home first and make sure we have established that. Establish a rapport with your school board members. Make sure that they understand that you, as not only an educator, but as a constituent, have questions and concerns and things you want to address, and then build from there. So that's what we do. We start at the micro level.
Yeah, and school board races are supposed to be nonpartisan, but we know they're not. So they are partisan. We have seen that HISD, up until this god awful takeover, we have been fortunate. And I think we're at a fork in the road where we don't have the protection of the city of Houston. During COVID, when the state was flexing their muscle, saying, we're gonna go after you if you have a mask mandate. We had one the whole time. And Lil Baby never came down here and said a word to Sylvester Turner, ever. Because we had the city of Houston, and they know that they were going to come out swinging. And that's why you have Whitmire. I'm like, yeah, we need to start at that level. Because here I was having this conversation in a text message chat. This is the leadership lineup for us. We got, you know who in HISD, who we're currently trying to send him on his merry way like every other school district did. Then we have Whitmire, who is not a Democrat and who does not have the city of Houston's best interest. He's over there, has lost his mind. Then you have at the state level, you know him, Greg Abbott. And then we have this incoming people. So our future, it looks really bumpy as we go up the ladder. And even we got these board of managers who are clueless and really think that we have stupid stamped on our forehead and we can't add, and we don't know that you're in a budget deficit. We knew it. We knew it before you knew it. So when we're talking about what do we do with policymakers, our state legislators, I'm not a big proponent on that as a initial first step to contact the legislature, because the legislature either has two things. They got to have money or votes. That's it. And most of the time, the votes do more and the community support does more than what the money will do. So if we have that, then we propel them and we give them the strength that they need to go to the state legislature. And also with board members, we have seen that. Lakeisha had the pleasure of coming to one of our board meetings, and our community has done some amazing work with us to help defeat a bond that we're not giving money to someone who we're already in the deficit. So those things really pushing on the board of managers, whether they are true to whatever they do, because we know they're not, because actions speak louder than words. We have made some gains. Some of the gains that I have made, we had one of the Black teachers win his hearing because they were getting rid of everybody no matter what the hearing officer said. But guess what? That has stopped. You know why it stopped? Because I filed a complaint with the Department of Education for discrimination. Those things matter, and it's not quick. It's not quick. But I noticed that, and that if you saw it on our Facebook page, if you're going through a hearing, opt for an open hearing so we can see what's going on. There's no shame in it. My attorney thought I was crazy. She asked me twice. She said, "You sure you want me to send all this?" Every document we sent to the hearing officer, send it to the media, because I wanted my evaluation out there. I wanted everything out there so you all can see. So those are the things, and I throw it up in the board of managers' faces all the time. You all did this. I threw up my star scores in their face too. I just emailed it to them a week ago. Y'all did that. Y'all tried to remove me. My kids still showed up. Period. So those are wins that we can make, but we don't know about them if you're hiding behind this wall of shame to push back on these board members and rallying the community behind you, because we need to know what's going on. So if they want to contact you, if you know some people in Deer Park, Lakeisha is the president of Deer Park Education Association. She is your point of contact. If you're in Beaumont, Kevin is your point of contact in Beaumont ISD. If you're in Houston, I am your point of contact. You can contact me on Facebook. I'm an email, text message, tag, post away. You can become a member of either of these organizations. You know, people that are involved. We are a small union. And I tell people all the time, because people say, well, HFT is bigger. Bigger doesn't necessarily mean better. We are an active union, and we actively seek out certain type of members. We are active. Keyword, active, action. You're going to see us out and about. You're going to see me at community meetings. You're going to see me. You're going to see me. So I'm going to leave that with you. 200, how many people we are? 35 beautiful people. If you are a community member and you have a teacher in your family and they are not a part of a union, if you have a principal that is you and you care about these people, and I'm telling you, become a part of the union, because I had a principal that just got removed. She listened to me. And her 30 days up to the date, the people removed her. She is covered. Pay your dues, people. www.mytsta.org and become a member today. Thank you all for tuning in. Share this live stream with someone who needs it, because you know who you are. Give yourself the gift of legal protection, if that's at minimum. And then maybe one day you'll become one of those active members that we're seeking out. So thank you again to Kevin and Lakeisha, and I'll see you all in our next live stream. Bye-bye.
Good night.